The year is 1999. Mississippi Governor Kirk Fordyce and his wife Patricia Owens are visiting the small town of Brookhaven, Mississippi for the restoration of Mary Jane Lambton Auditorium on the old Whitworth campus. There, in the hot Mississippi sun, Mrs. Fordyce leans over to her husband and makes a quick suggestion. She offhandedly remarks that the recently renovated Lambton Auditorium and the rest of the Whitworth campus, which was slated for renovation, would make a fantastic location for an art school. That day, Governor and Mrs. Fordyce planted the seeds that would grow into the Mississippi School of the Arts. And that's where our story begins.
Well, I'm Jennifer Jackson. I have been at MSA since the very beginning. I was the second employee hired here, and it's just my dream job. I'd heard about MSA from the very beginning, and at the time I was marketing director at the local hospital. But I've always had an interest in the arts and have always thought that something like this would be a wonderful thing, and so I was interested from the get-go. I was hired by Dr. Vicki Bodenhammer, who was the first executive director here at the school, and a panel from the Mississippi Department of Education.
I knew about this school before it even opened because Brookhaven is my hometown, so many of the citizens, including my dad, were very excited and would tell me about the progress of the construction. And then one day in early 2002, I attended a conference in Hattiesburg where I lived and was working for the public schools, and I saw Dr. Vicki Bodenhammer and Jennifer Jackson, who were already out promoting the school, and they asked me if I wanted to apply as the school's librarian.
I first heard about MSA when I was in 9th grade at Horn Lake High School, and I was told by my teacher that it would not be open until 2005, which was going to be my graduating year, so I kind of put it out of my head. And then in 10th grade, I was at a different high school, South Haven High School, and my teacher told me that it was actually going to be opening up the next year, so I was eligible to apply.
Somehow or other I had heard about the plans for this school maybe 2 or 3 years before it opened. And my husband and I both were very interested in the whole idea, and we both thought we might apply. And I don't remember exactly how I got word that it was, that they were looking for teachers and they were actually going to be opening, but I did. And I applied and was interviewed in the middle of the summer of that year that it finally opened.
The first thing was to get the buildings in shape where this could become a school, and Johnson Institute, which is now our main building for classrooms, was literally falling in the street. It was really in disrepair, as all the buildings were.
In Lambton Auditorium, which was at that time the one building that was accessible, and Dr. Bodenhammer's desk was up on the stage.
The reason for that is the rest of this beautiful building leaked. This was the only place that didn't leak. This was the only usable building that you could even go into on campus. For the first 2 years, I had to wear a hard hat to work every day because you didn't know if a building was going to fall in on you or not. So at that point, it was getting the school ready, getting the buildings ready, working on them. It was a lot of that work because, it was about 3 years of work before the school was ever open.
There wasn't a lot of lead time to become organized, but there was some little bit of preparation and thinking about the software that I would want to use in this library and a little bit of ordering. But when I first got here on the first day to meet the faculty, the rest of the faculty, maybe just a day or two before the students arrived, I came in this room that we're sitting in, this beautiful library. It was a completely empty room. We all realized that the construction really had practically just finished. The workers had walked out and we walked in.
When we moved in, there was no furniture besides in the cafeteria and in the dorm rooms. There was no shelves in the library. There were no books in the library.
Well, this was the thing. There was nothing given to us that I could remember. I was at that time the only full-time art teacher, and Dr. Bodenhammer was the director, but she would teach drawing, and maybe she taught ceramics class, but it was mostly up to me to handle, at that time, what was the 11th grade class. We just had that one class. And it was trial and error as much as anything.
My first packets that I gave students had pictures of the models and the architect's renderings, and just I had to use clip art of students because we didn't have students, so I had to purchase clip art. So it was just, they had to see the dream that we saw and see the vision that we saw.
So it was going to be a big job to start the school and the library. The furniture was on the way, which the students eventually took as their first school motto, because they would say, "Where are the washing machines?" And people would just tell them, well, they're on the way. So
they seemed to really enjoy each other's company and feeding off each other's energy. And they were helpful. Like I was remembering that the second year I was here, when they hired another teacher, they asked me to teach digital arts. And I didn't know much about digital arts, but with the help of the students, we put together a pretty good little program. And I learned and they learned, and that was kind of how it went. We taught each other, I think.
there were a lot of little traditions, you know, that started at the beginning, and it relates to the book club. Eventually, the book club started hosting a coffee house sometimes. And, you know, the book club was also a group where people kind of came and went. And the reason we turned into a coffee house is that people would come to the book club mostly because they wanted the tea that we were drinking. So we realized there was a need for community, you might say.
So you left in 2005. What brought you back here?
I always wanted to come back here. I really fell in love with Brookhaven while I was attending the school. But I would have to say the number one thing that I came back for was my husband is from Brookhaven. And after I finished college, we knew that Brookhaven was a really great place to live and raise a family. So we decided to return here with our 2-year-old so he could get the benefit of growing up in a small town around my husband's family, and yeah, kind of how to get the Brookhaven small town experience.
You left in about 2009. Am I right about that?
No, I came back in 2009.
So you left at some point, though.
Yes.
Why was that? Why'd you leave MSA?
Well, I had to leave MSA. A lot of us had to leave MSA. I would have never left on my own. Funding was a huge issue. At that point, we had gotten the school ready to start, but guess what? After the first year, I think it was going on the second year, or maybe the third year, that we had students here, funding was an issue. And in order to hire teachers to teach the disciplines that we had, several of us, I believe about 9 of us, were let go in order to have the money to hire teachers, which you can't have a school without teachers. So it was strictly a funding issue, and I understood. I wanted the school to succeed, so it really didn't bother me to have to give up my job to save the school. So there were a lot of us. Our director of residential life, there were a lot of people that just, in order to make the school happen and to hire more teachers, they had to come up with the money. But guess what? I came back.
The School of the Arts was, I'm sure it is still a work in progress, still on its way. It has gone through some financial hard times, but because of the diligence of people working on behalf of the school, for instance, the foundation for MSA, it's still plugging along.
So what do you want to see with MSA going forward into their next 15 years? What do you want to see happen here?
Well, I wish in some ways they could finish one more building and maybe another dorm and expand, so that more students are able to take advantage of such a place. I mean, anytime you tell somebody about it, they've never heard of it, but they think it's wonderful, It's just a wonderful idea for young people.
I really hope that the school will continue to grow. I'd really like to see Cooper revitalized and see it become a working building in some kind of capacity. I'd love to see a 7th discipline added, instrumental music or musical theater maybe. I'd love to see a 2nd dorm tower within 15 years. I'd love to grow our enrollment numbers. I'd love to see the city of Brookhaven grow exponentially. I'd love for us to get a Chick-fil-A. I'd love for us to get a more updated movie theater and things like that. Having the school here has really brought a lot of revitalization to the city, especially the downtown area, so I'd love to see more of that. Really, I hope that the school will just remain, not just for 15 years, but for the next 150 years.
15 years from now, which would be 2033, I would hope that this library is still here, serving students as their living room area somewhat, home away from home.
My personal vision, I feel that our school celebrating 15 years this year, I can't even believe it. It's just, I believe very soon we'll start seeing those seeds that we've planted through the years blossom and grow. We're beginning to see it now with different students being on television, being able to pursue their dreams. My vision is for students to continue to pursue their dreams, and I think we will see it on a national level, and very, very soon I think it will start.